In contrast to the previous discussion on IP, we are not a biotech or a pharma company. We are doing drug development of Ibogaine inadvertently, in a way. Our focus as a company is to provide Ibogaine therapy. That's what we want to do, and wherever we can do it in a legal way, we will already do it. We know that Ibogaine, the molecule, as it stands, from nature works. So we don't believe that we need to tinker around with it to create IP with a classic pharma drug development model. We know that Ibogaine works from the experience of many thousands of patients who've gone through Ibogaine detox successfully, and also from hundreds and hundreds of scientific papers that show that Ibogaine is effective at detox. So we're in a situation where we're a Vancouver-based company. We are hopefully this year going to RTO and IPO, and the primary use of funds will be to put Ibogaine through clinical trials with Health Canada. So our big focus, or one big focus at the moment, is the clinical trial application. There is a huge amount of information that has to go in there. We are hoping to submit the CTA, the clinical trial application, by the end of Q1 next year, we would say. Because we're not a pharmaceutical company, we don't have the deep expertise of a biotech in-house. So our approach is to outsource to what's called a CRO, a clinical research organization. We are just about to contract a CRO, and they will do all the heavy lifting in terms of preparing the CTA, the clinical trial application, and then getting us through to the no objection letter, and hopefully to begin clinical trials by the middle of next year. Our idea, based on all of the previous evidence and research on Ibogaine, is that we will start at phase 2. So phase 2, not phase 1, which is a small cohort of healthy patients. We want to begin and plan to begin with people with opioid use disorder. To facilitate our process in the clinical trials, we are acquiring a standard rehab clinic in central Canada, in Manitoba, and that will be the site for the phase 2 trials. And then the idea is we hope to complete phase 2 trials some way into 2022, and then we will, of course, submit a clinical trial application for phase 3. And our plan for phase 3 is to run concurrently in Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. So conservatively, by 2024, we hope to have data approved for phase 3 in those 3 countries. And then we'll be in a situation where we can open legal Ibogaine clinics in these 3 countries. And the advantage of Canada, apart from the clinical trials being, on the one hand, cheaper than the US, obviously, if you don't know, Ibogaine is Schedule 1 in the US, which makes drug development with Ibogaine very problematic. It needs to be rescheduled. But once we get approved phase 3 data from Health Canada and other regulatory approvals, it basically means that our clinics across Canada can serve an American audience. Currently, people in addiction that find out about Ibogaine, most typically, if they're American or Canadian, will go south to Mexico, where Dr. Sola has a clinic in Cancun, and he'll talk about that. Unfortunately, most Ibogaine clinics, or many Ibogaine clinics in Mexico, you don't know what you're getting. You don't know if there's full medical supervision. I think the thing that marks Ibogaine out from other psychedelics is that it really, really does require medical supervision. Again, Dr. Solar will be talking about that. So the point to make is that Ibogaine is safe and it is effective, but it absolutely must be in a full medical context. The point about Ibogaine detox is that it also needs to be put in a holistic setting. So while Ibogaine detox is generally effective and tends to have 50% long-term success rates in terms of abstinence, you get much higher success rates if Ibogaine is placed into a therapeutic context of pre-treatment therapy and then aftercare. So Universal Ibogaine, very much through the Clear Sky Recovery brand that we will be rolling out, is very much focused on holistic provision of Ibogaine therapy. So it's not just about the molecule itself. Going back to the previous discussion on IP, the issue with Ibogaine that means that you have to have a medical context is the cardiotoxicity. There's no point trying to dodge the issue. Ibogaine can slow the heart rate down. It can lead to arrhythmias. That's why you need to be hooked up to an EKG or an ECG machine. Have your oxygen in your blood measured continually, have eyes on the EKG all the way through the Ibogaine treatment. So it could well be that a second generation molecule ultimately replaces Ibogaine, and that second generation molecule would have the advantage of being less cardiotoxic, but that's many, many years away, likely not this decade, because it will have to go through the full gamut of the phases of clinical trials. Aside from the clinical trials process, as I hinted at before, we are going to open up Ibogaine clinics where they're already legal. It turns out, and I didn't know this until that long ago, but there's one country in the world where Ibogaine has already been approved by a Ministry of Health National Ethics Committee, and that's the Bahamas. So we do plan to set up a clinic in Q1 next year in the Bahamas, which will be a five-star holistic treatment setting for Ibogaine. And it will have linkages with Manitoba in terms of aftercare. So you can go for your detox in the Bahamas and then go to our clinic in Manitoba for the aftercare. Another thing I will say at this stage is that the setting of being a Canadian company and recognizing that there were people living for many thousands of years in Canada is incredibly important to us. We have Chief Ian Campbell on our board. He's both a hereditary chief and an elected chief. And that's a sign of how significant the First Nations opportunity is for us in Canada. So we're also in talks with a lodge, a very spiritually advanced lodge in central Canada, about partnering with them. And our idea there is to support them to set up a healing business using First Nations spiritual traditions, sweat lodges and whatnot. And that would be another aftercare option for people that go to do Ibogaine detox. So the idea there is that wherever we go, for instance, if you look at Australia or if you look at New Zealand, we'll find similarly indigenous holistic traditions that we want to tap into and partner with and support, so that those traditions get revalidated, and also there's a business opportunity for people from those areas. Anyway, that's enough about the general shape of things. I hope I've summarized it relatively well.